Wake up, Adam, they are getting close.
Fantastic Freddy's. In the Strait of Hormuz, in the Strait of Hormuz, there will be fantastic Freddy's. Lab test confirms White House substance found was cocaine. This is absolutely the funniest thing I've seen over the last couple days out of all of the crazy things that are happening over the talk of end of the world and WW3 trending all over Twitter. The response is actually funnier than the event itself. Now, of course, a certain president's son has a reputation that, of course, everybody are utilizing right now because of this. But the response from Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, the woman who does all of the spin jobs on what is happening, they want to make it clear that the president and his family were not in the White House. They said it several times. They said that this was found, a little baggie of basically the Coca-Cola was found in a highly trafficked area, that it was in a common area. But what's so funny is it's so obvious that they're trying to point out that this is not the president. They literally, even in her press conference, she goes, it's in a highly common area in the White House. I mean, West Wing. I want to clarify, West Wing. And the president was not there. Just to clarify, the president and his family was not there. They were at Camp David, right? So they obviously know that people are going to the assumption that this may have been somebody else's. Now, this is a house full of White House workers. Now, I bet you they get, tested and things like this. But you better bet that a lot of these people are, probably above the law. These are the people that almost every staff member in that place, they get pulled over and go, do you know who I am? So what do you guys think? It's, again, found. It was a little baggie. It was tested. They first said that it was something for like a dentist. Come on, people. It was now confirmed as it was the cocaine. So unless they're getting a visit from a dignitary of some sort, a dictatorship from, Chile or something, I don't know, then it was probably one of the people that worked there. Now, since the president wasn't there, conveniently they can say it wasn't his. What's even funnier is they keep saying highly trafficked in all of the articles. They're basically covering for the fact that somebody had cocaine in the White House. And they say that they are taking it to a forensics labs, and they're already telling you, just so you know, we probably won't know who did this, and we probably won't know, even though that they're doing fingerprints, they're doing forensics, and they're looking at all of the cameras. Wherever they found it, look at the camera, see when that little baggie appeared out of somebody's pocket, and then you found the person. Now, what makes me suspicious is if they have all of that, they have cameras all over the White House and all of the public, highly trafficked areas. So if it was found on the floor in the highly trafficked area or whatever, or on a table, then they have video footage of when it was there and when it wasn't. And I bet you they'll say, oh, well, it only records events or something like a Ring camera. Come on. This is the White House. I bet you they can scroll back, see the floor, and then see this thing pop up and see the guy or girl walking past and this thing pop up. So it's really stupid. This is the same White House that makes laws and puts people in prison for their entire lives for different, of course, substances. And now, of course, the rules are for thee, not for me. What do you guys think? We'll talk about a lot more. There's a lot of really scary things going on. So if you are easily freaked out by world events, then today's show might not be for you. It's July 5th, which everyone has been talking about since Zaporizhia. Of course, there was a lot of talk about it either blowing up. NATO, Article 5, World War III is trending right now. So if you don't like scary movies, today's episode is not the one to watch. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. In the Strait of Hormuz, in the Strait of Hormuz, there will be fantastic Freddy's. In the Strait of Hormuz, in the Strait of Hormuz, there will be... All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. If you've never been here before, make sure to go over to our website. We have a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we are going to show you here today. So if we do show you some sort of video, tweet, document, you will be able to access it over on our website, and all you have to do is look for today's thumbnail. You'll look for something big is happening, and then, of course, click on that. In the Strait of Hormuz, July 5th, fireworks are just beginning, and then, of course, you'll find all of our sources. Not only that, you'll find all sorts of other great stuff. Today, in particular, there is the July 4th eruption on the sun to impact Earth. That was done by Wages World, a fellow creator and one of my good friends. Make sure to go check out his video. He is talking about how the crazy thing came off the sun just yesterday. And then, of course, there's all sorts of other things that are going on right now that could not fit into the show. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So before anybody ends up asking, yesterday I had a pretty big accident while doing 4th of July fireworks. I actually, I don't know if you guys know those big, huge buckets that they use for kitty litter. There's one side that opens up, and then there's one side that's kind of glued down. Well, I was helping the neighbors light off, Roman candles, only we had Roman candles, and then we had these bigger ones. And these bigger ones were like huge. And after the first person handheld these, which you're not even supposed to handhold Roman candles, they didn't realize that these things were so powerful. And it basically bucked the woman back. So I went and got a bucket, and I was going to cut a hole in it in the bucket with sand in it, or kitty litter. And I was cutting the lid, and I actually had a knife that was sent to me by Energy, and it's like a really nice Gerber knife that has, like, thank you to the Marfoogle family. And I was going to cut it, and the rubber, it was giving me a lot of resistance, and then all of a sudden, it was like the bottom part of the blade that didn't have a blade was giving a lot of resistance. Once it hit the really sharp part of the knife, it just popped right out. And then I wasn't expecting it, so it popped right back in, and it went clear through my hand. It went in, and then what I didn't realize until after we cleared it up, that it actually went out the other side. So I think I got really lucky because I can still move all my fingers. My tendons aren't there, but we basically butterflied it, and luckily one of my other nurses was a veterinarian and used to be like in nursing school, but she did a really good job. And then I found out about, I think it was called malitothal. It was a pink stuff that they put on it that you can only get in Mexico now, but it has like an aspirin / like lidocaine factor to it, and it was pretty cool. But they cleaned it up. I did not want to go on 4th of July to the ER, but it was such a clean cut that it healed up pretty fast as far as the outside, but it seems like it's doing really well. Did you hurt yourself on 4th of July? You would think, out of all things, that, it would be like a burn or an explosion, not a cut. So that really sucked. It actually, the only other time that I have done something like that is when I essentially cut the tip of my thumb off with a cheese grater. So I've never done that. It was pretty scary. How was your 4th of July? Let me know in the chat below. And then, of course, Cray Slayer, thank you. Haha, trafficked area. Is that drug or slave? And then Lola Cafe, thank you for the support. The Reality Flow, thank you as well. I think you were the last one out last time. It says, grew up in Seattle, much love, and living in Georgia like Dex, and I love the South. All right, well, thank you guys for all coming. And we have so much to go over. Remember also to go over to marfooglenews.com/friends, where you can find Wages World and other friends there. All of our mods, they're all wonderful people that keep the chat peaceful, that help you with links, and of course, are just great people in general. So make sure to go check out their sites. Dex, what did you think over the holiday? You know, with this whole they found cocaine. Obviously, it's a holiday, so maybe they were having fun at the White House.
Yeah, so we had reported this, and we had originally reported it was a dental type of or oral surgeon type of medicinal component that was found. And the reason we reported that was what they had reported, by the way, and it had come out. This was on Monday, and the reason they had said that is when the on-scene fire department / hazmat did the testing, that's what it came up as. But it doesn't give them the full. You know, they have to send it off. They wanted to send it off to the lab. So that's how that first story came out when we first were talking about this. And now the lab comes back and says, oh no, it's really that. And oh, by the way, if they would have described it to us as in a small baggie in a powder form, we all know what that is. Like it's not dental, it's not dental equipment or dental medicine. So, but anyway, there's also been just a little brief history of substances in the White House. If you guys don't remember back, the country legend singer Willie Nelson bragged about firing up a big fat Austin torpedo on the roof of the White House late in Jimmy Carter's tenure. And don't forget, I believe it was George H.W. Had a clear bag of the rock version of what that baggie they found this time, and was holding it up in the Oval Office. Now he was using it as an address to talk about the substance problems that were happening, but it was literally there in the White House. So it's not a first time, and I'm sure it's probably not the first time for a lot of people there. Kind of like you said, I can't imagine that there's not people that so many people go in and out of there. There's not somebody in there that's using that.
No, I mean, Hollywood and politics is very close as far as that goes. As we saw with the UK government during CV, when everybody was locked down, they were having house parties and not wearing masks and, drinking and doing all sorts of fun stuff. So we know that, of course, this stuff gets caught on camera every once in a while. But they say, that it probably wasn't the prez, right? Father Joe was out of the house, so they were having fun. They were like, well, our parents won't be home, so let's have fun. Probably some key chief member of the staff or something, or Millie had G over or something. Who knows? And then we have French government could cut off social media during unrest, says Macron. So this is really terrifying, because if this sets a precedent for other places, I mean, what is the difference between Cuba doing that and France? Dex, have you thought about that? Cuba cut off the internet, and the whole world gasped and said, "Hey, this is like really messed up." And they even talked about Operation Starfall and about putting up atmospheric balloons to provide internet for places like this if their dictators turn off their internet. If France and Macron do the same thing, and they're saying, "Oh, well, it's basically to keep you safe." What the heck is the difference, right? What do you think?
Absolutely. The whole world should be in a gasp over this too. He should not be saying this. This should not even be an option. In a world where we have freedom, we should not lock everyone else up online and say you can't do anything because somebody in your area is acting bad. That's very very much the signs of dictatorship, of not having rule of the people. And I hope the people there, put him in his place, or at least put him in check as far as their feelings towards the laws and these types of statements, so that they either elect people that don't do that, or he understands that that's not what the people want. I don't I don't know what's going to happen in France. It's kind of crazy over there. But this, in my opinion, it's not the way to go about it. You don't just start silencing everyone. And if you do, then you should be looking up above at who's in charge, because that's not the will of the people.
No, and usually that would be one of the most important times for folks to know what's going on, to be able to go to social media and find out what's happening down their own street. If you realize that the majority of people that are not participating in the rioting or anything else, they're going to social media to find out what is happening, and they're going to find out, exactly what's wrong with that, and they're not going to go to that area, right? So for them to shut down social media, if they for some reason do this, and it sounds like they're setting up for something like that, when things get out of hand in the country, to turn it off, this will set a precedent of a major country like this doing this that isn't some sort of dictatorship. Dex, go ahead.
I mean, where do you draw the line? What's next? You tell people they can't leave their home. You lock their doors and force them in. You shut down the automobile so they can't drive. You take away all freedoms. Well, that's not a free society. So as much as they want to blame the tool, it's sort of like those that blame the bang bang for the event instead of the person that did it. In this scenario, they're blaming the technology instead of the people that are using the technology. And that's the real problem. Go after the bad actors. Take people. If somebody's breaking the law, then they're breaking the law. Deal with that, but don't ruin everyone else's freedoms over it.
Exactly. And like you said, turn off their cars in the future. They're doing all of these things that we've covered before. Like they're trying to put, so say we do in a few years have all electric cars. They're trying to ban regular cars in some states after a certain year. Say we go all electric. Well, they're already trying to make it a standard for all cars, no matter how they're made, to have some sort of DUI prevention thing inside. And how they would do this is the scary part. Putting possible cameras inside your car that would be able to detect if you were either drunk or if you were falling asleep, or these things. Or they would even have something that would detect alcohol in the driver, right? How would they do that? That was the big question. Well, there would be something that would shut off your car. The reason why people like myself ask questions about this is because say they don't exactly go by the book on this. Say all cars are made with this, and at somehow remote control, they can turn off your car and not allow you to drive. Will then law enforcement start using that and say, hey, this person has a warrant. We're going to make sure that their registered vehicle will not start, and they will stop it in its tracks, or they will control it remotely and make it pull over somewhere. Now, that's great if it's somebody who legitimately did a crime, but we know that the justice system isn't perfect and that people get falsely accused of things. So it's really scary that things like this, where they turn off the internet, all of this infrastructure that's based on our internet, is now a really dangerous place as far as where the government and law enforcement involved, and we need to have some sort of balance. Not to mention the facial recognition, the cameras that are now popping up everywhere. And we know that there's always been cameras everywhere, but now you're talking about every single person who puts a Ring doorbell camera on their house is also in the future going to be directly connected to the police stations. I mean, they're already doing that. They have the patents in place. They already have it happening, especially with 7-Elevens and grocery stores and big store chains. They have a direct connection with the police department. We know because the police department has been paying them. But in the future, it's going to be interconnected to the point where the police can access any camera. Somebody with a warrant walks past your house, facial recognition grabs that frame, and then boom, all of a sudden you have cops rolling down your street. Or your daughter's girlfriend comes over for Thanksgiving, and maybe he was falsely accused of something. Now the SWAT team is at your door. It's scary stuff, and that's where our future is going. And of course, it's evolution of technology and everything else, but some of us, I guess, are old school and are not excited about the future of complete control with the governments. And then a House investigator warns UFOs are beyond control in our military airspace. So it continues. It's almost every week we have kind of a major UFO story, whereas 10 years ago, this would be kind of laughed away. Dex, do you want to talk about how this representative Tim says that this is out of control?
Well, yeah, certainly. He's referring to, all of the information that's been coming out about potentially capturing aircraft, and even some suggesting that there were pilots on those crafts. So if they've captured them and they're from another place, then we have the entity that's from another place, etc. But he's, basically this is coming from one of the a congressperson who and as well as somebody from the director of the Department of Defense all domain anomaly research office who testified in Congress, that which we've talked about numerous times, that this is basically creating, as they're saying it, if what is happening is true, then we have all of this happening inside our airspace, and our military has basically no knowledge of it, no capability to deal with it. We have no protection from it, and it's an issue, and it should be an issue that should be dealt with. Now, we get all the UFO talk all the time, and I'm not here to say if it's true or if it's if it's not true, but you know I have to question, why do we get it so much here recently, and why has it been since last year when they started to ramp this up that it's becoming more and more and more. And it almost feels like, and I know a lot of people have talked about this whole notion of they're going to eventually tell us that this is real. um and by the way, some of them have been telling us this is real. So maybe they've already started and we just haven't fully accepted it yet, because we keep finding ways to sort of dismiss that it's not official statement, it's someone else. But some are suggesting that this information's coming out and building up, as as you would call it, disclosure or something along those lines, to get the public prepared for this type of message. Now, many don't think that this is even true at all, and many think that this kind of messaging is actually being done with a nefarious means to an end there. So, but you be the judge. This is what they're saying.
Yeah, and there's always the point that people think that they're going to do some sort of false alien invasion type thing. The more that this stuff gets talked about, the more people kind of go, well, what is going on? What are they doing with this whole UFO thing? Why is the official government talking about this kind of stuff? Unless there is either something there or there's some sort of secret technology. And it's definitely some sort of cover up in some fashion, because if they do have that technology, then they're probably hiding unlimited energy, and they're still charging us for fossil fuels and things when there's something that could be unlimited energy and free, right? But then they couldn't make billions of dollars off of us. Who knows, though? And then Army fires Tomahawk missile from its new Typhoon battery in major milestone. The U.S. Army says that it has demonstrated the operational capability of its newest ground-based missile launcher with the system's recent successful firing of a Tomahawk land attack cruise missile. This follows a test launch of a multi-purpose SM-6 missile earlier this year from what is officially known as the Typhoon weapon system. The service currently has one so-called mid-range capability battery equipped with Typhoon, which has 4 trailer-based launchers and other supporting equipment. The Army's Rapid Capabilities and Critical Technologies Office of the RCCTO announced that the Tomahawk launched on June 28th, but the actual test had occurred the day before. This comes over just 6 months after the service accepted the delivery of the first Typhoon launchers and the components of the first mid-range capability battery from Lockheed Martin. This test follows the successful launch of an SM-6 missile from the mid-range capability system earlier this year, confirming the full operational capability of the system. So they now have a new badass system, and it is now in play. Army officials have said in the past that their goal is to reach at least some level of true operational capability with the first MRC battery before the end of fiscal year 2023 in September. So not even, in the end of the regular year, in the fiscal year. By September, in just about 2 months, they want to have this thing operational. Dex, did that kind of raise anything raise anything when you read this, that they have to have it basically now, or they want it right now?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious where these are going to be used and why. Now, here's the couple things that I was thinking about. For one, a Tomahawk is a Navy missile for the most part. It's been used on the ships. It's been on ships and submarines. It's never been launched from the ground. So this is a new capability, or at least bringing more life to that particular projectile. But the other thing, when you look at the pictures, not only the diagram that you're showing on the screen, but I think there's a similar picture further down about these uh, trailers. They look very much like a trailer you would see on the interstate. In other words, these things could, while they're the ones they were using for the test, are painted in green and camo green, et cetera, and they're being pulled by a military truck that's in green, et cetera. These things could easily be disguised as a trailer on the back of a semi truck running down the road, because they are boxed like a trailer. They are smooth, they are clear. You could probably put markings all over them. You could probably make it look like it's, a Walmart truck if you wanted to, for that matter. Maybe to the observant eye, you would be able to recognize that it's something different, but to mom and pop driving down the interstate with the kids in the back seat screaming, ain't nobody going to pay attention to that. So unless there's a military truck on the front of it pulling it. But anyway, those are the two things I thought about. The Tomahawks being now land-based. Why do they need that? Unless it's just a money option for the military industrial complex. And then two, this whole notion of these trailers and the fact that these trailers that they're designing here, especially for this one, are very smooth-like and look very similar to cargo trailers that are on the interstate.
If that did not have a military truck on the front of it, I guarantee you, nobody would get the difference. If you look, there is some sort of controls here on the right side of it, but that doesn't look any different. A normal person would go, is that the refrigerator controls or something, and they probably have a panel that can go over that and close, right? These look like normal trailers. Look at even the back door of it. That does not look any different from any container I've seen. And I worked at a warehouse for over a year, and my entire job was to take things that were from international, coming in from Canada. Our system basically forces it to go through a equipped place, a customs approved place, and they would literally take a forklift, take it off of one truck. I was a lumper, so I would just basically take the stuff off, put it on a different pallet, and then put it into a U.S. truck, and then that U.S. truck would go over wherever it was. And I have seen every type of container. This looks exactly like almost all of the containers out there. I'm sure most truckers are like, yeah, that just looks like a container. So is there anything that really sticks out to you if you are a trucker and you spend all the time on the road? Is there anything that sticks out as a launcher on that? Because you can't really see the top of it. I'm sure you can probably see some, lines of where this missile pops out. But this is exactly what we have been talking about for years. Some sort of mobile system that was drove around. And we've known that they had container missiles and things like this, but now they have Tomahawk missiles. These things are extreme. These are the missiles that they will pull up a ship to a country and knock out things. This is pretty insane. It is a really cool capability, but why now? And why are they getting it ready in the next 2 months? It's just a thought. Let me know in the comments down below. Kay Parker Fraser says, best channel on the tube. Hey, Adam, Dex, and Mods. Hey, thank you, Kay. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And then Mitch Mouth says, then you for your show. I love it. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. T3 says, let's not all forget what happened at Ruby Ridge. 200 federal agents spent $1 million per day to take out a man's child and wife. T3, thank you for your support. Passing through, thank you for subscribing. Miss Dragon, methylate antiseptic. U.S. Gen X would suffer before they used it on us. Methylate antiseptic. Gen X would suffer before they used it on us. Huh. So methylate sounds like that's the pink stuff that she put on my hand. So I don't know if you're saying it's a bad thing. It did get totally. They can't have it in the States anymore. But I will tell you this: the pain was gone instantly. And then God bless all. Get prepared as we seem to be entering World War III and the Beast system. T3, thank you. And then T3 also says, no disrespect to the vets, but at this point, I don't think we can trust the federal troops. 90% take orders from the OG. the OG, Daniel Streitbeck. Well, that's a thing. They've done what is that? Dex, do you remember what that test was called? They did it's a certain type of test where they asked soldiers if they would basically fire on their own people. I'm forgetting the word. Do you remember what that test was called?
I do not remember the name of it,
Somebody
but I do remember us talking about it.
Litmus? Is it litmus? They did some sort of they tested the troops, and if you don't know, if you know what that is called, I forget what it was called, but I feel like the results of that were that our troops wouldn't, or something like that. But who knows what happens if you say no? Let's see here. Beer Juice, thank you. Black Cat, Whirly Gig, and let's see here. Texas Mama Bear, hey, nice to see you. Dr. Sean Berry. You can't trust the military in this day and age. Well, probably not the very top people, I'm assuming, compared to what's going on. Mentio Latte says, Pina Perspective says, used in Mexico all the time, stings a bit, but works well. Yeah, that is exactly what it is. It came in a little pink bottle. And I have to tell you, I was like amazed. And they said that they were going to go there, and next time they would grab me some. Let's see here. Ligma test, the HB laptop, the Hunter B laptop says, I think it sounded like Litmus or Ligma, maybe you might be right. And then Live Your Life says Litmus. I don't know if that's what it was called, but I feel like they did this around that time. And then also, didn't they do another test when T-Man was in charge, right when it was about to switch, and they were trying to figure out if people were domestic T-ists? I feel like they did another one. Either way, moving on. Before we go over to the Iranian Navy warship fires on an oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. We've been, of course, watching the Strait of Hormuz closely. Again, just want to remind you, if you haven't already, there is a huge sale. Of course, 4th of July is around, so a lot of the affiliates right now have sales going, and there are a good chunk of them that actually stack on top of our discount. I would highly recommend going and checking out the X2 on all of the remaining X2 units. This is a solar generator that has UPS built in. It is, again, a bigger battery than, say, one flex battery, all built in, and it can be dual linked. It is a solar generator that is silent and that can power a whole lot, again, and this is now 15% off plus our discount. So again, they have a 15% off of all of the remaining units they have right now. So if you do want to go check out one of the greatest companies as far as solar generators go, I would highly recommend going over to marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY. Highly recommend this. This is the same company that is now just won the SBIR Phase 2 contract for the U.S. Army. They also helped design the Flex Tactical with the Air Force Research Laboratory. So one thing that is good about these things is that they are reliable and that they will work. You do not want a solar generator that is off of off of some YouTube commercial that may not turn on in SHTF. Now, there are some good competitors, and most of you guys know those. I think that the Flex system and the energy systems actually even have a step above them as well. So again, I've said, the footprint of all of the expandable modular systems like the Flex, they don't have any external cords going outside. They don't take as much room, and especially when you're expanding this thing, it is really, really awesome that you can save that space. So go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. You'll also get a discount on the Flex 1500, the LT, of course, the Flex Tactical, the new one that just came out, that actually has built-in heaters for extreme cold temperatures. So make sure to go check it out. You will not only get a discount, but if you do get the X2, you will get an additional 15% off. So make sure to go call them up now. All right, marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and the code Marfoogle. So the Iranian Navy warship fires on an oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, there's actually another story that kind of that I think is somewhat connected to this. It's very, very odd. We've always talked about possible Fantastic Freddy's happening in the ocean, and especially the Strait of Hormuz, or any of the straits, any of the major lines, where possibly a ship would be painted like another ship and attack something in a major strait or in a major port. And then, of course, whoever was blamed, then, of course, everybody goes to conflict. Well, this is an oil tanker, so it's not, an Iranian ship attacking, say, a U.S. Navy ship. But a lot of people are asking a lot of questions. Dex, what did you think when you saw the Strait of Hormuz in the title?
Well, it seems clear to me from what they're reporting, and it goes hand in hand with what we've seen happen and what we've reported here over the last couple weeks, that they're continuing to go after these oil tankers. So it was apparent that the at least how they're telling us, it was apparent that the Iranian warship was attempting to seize two commercial tankers, and they were actually firing upon them in to try to do so. And then, of course, the U.S. Navy showed up, and I guess right before leaving the scene after the U.S. Navy forces showed up. So they were there, they were trying to get it accomplished, and then we show up into the scene, and then of course they take off. So they split. So obviously prevented in this scenario, but we've seen them, just recently take other ships, and they've vowed to continue to do this. So if this keeps happening, it's going to affect your pocketbook. It's going to affect a lot of things with the oil trade industry, because if they can't feel comfortable going through that strait, coming out of, say, Kuwait and other locations where they load up the ships with oil and then pass through there, then they're gonna have an issue. Either the shippers won't go through, or the oil companies, will have issues because they're constantly being taken. And so we have to basically patrol that and keep the waterways open and free for free trade. That's the intention. Now, what that really probably means is this is just one more way to ramp up a conflict with Iran. If they keep doing this over and over again, it's going to get worse, because we're not going to want to be in a position where we can't have the oil come through that area, because that will have a huge effect to the entire global economy. And I'm sure they would like to see that happen. But this is something that, this is why we have military there. This is why we try to keep those open free trade routes running.
I see, and especially this part up here, everything that is going on. If we've had so many different events that affect our pocket and that affect our supply chain and everything else. It says an Iranian warship fired on an oil tanker off the coast of Oman before leaving the scene after a U.S. naval forces arrived. The U.S. Fifth Fleet announced on early Wednesday morning, Iranian warships attempted to seize two commercial tankers. Iranian personnel fired multiple shots while attempting to take oil tanker Richmond Voyager, according to the Navy release, as well as surveillance assets, including MQ-9 Reaper and Navy P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft responded to the two attempted seizures. So you have basically our military's word for what is going on here. Now, Iranian people, the military, bad mofos. But the thing that people are wondering right now is if they are trying to get us into some sort of conflict. Some believe they are literally trying to get us into some sort of massive battle with whatever you want to call the new axis of evil, whatever you want to call it. Specifically, anything that happens in the Strait of Hormuz, especially since that quote of the gentleman says, we're going to take seven countries in 5 years. We're going to start out with Libya, blah, 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 and we're going to end off with Iran. And there will be a ship that's painted like another ship in the Strait of Hormuz, right off the coast of Oman, blah, blah, blah. And it's like whenever this stuff happens, you think of a Fantastic Freddy, right? Well, I think it's funny. Maybe other people are kind of noticing that kind of stuff too. In fact, let's see here. And this was later in the show, but I did want to bring this up because there was actually a story that Russia is painting dark stripes on its warships to make them look smaller and to confuse Ukrainian drones. Now, that could very well be the thing here. But what if there was some sort of intelligence that there was going to be a Fantastic Freddy? So say a ship is painted or looks exactly like a Russian ship, does some sort of horrible thing to another ship. And then you go, oh, that ship just attacked World War III. Well, then Russia could respond and go, that's not our ship. You didn't have the very specific markings that we put on all of our ships now. That's what I thought about when I saw this. If they had any kind of like a whiff of something happening or some sort of Fantastic Freddy happening, would they do something like this? and then essentially document it. And then later on, they could go, no, that wasn't our ship. It doesn't have the black stripes on the side, or it doesn't have the logo that we just painted on all of our ships. I mean, am I crazy to think that? Again, I may be completely off base, but let me know in the comments down below. As far as Iran, there's a lot of chatter from Iran. They, of course, we have been covering them almost every week with their underground missile base, the fact that they are possibly creating nuclear weapons, all of the other things that are going on right now, and the fact that they have actually threatened our former president. The actual Ayatollah has put out videos of our former president getting taken out by a drone. I mean, like, there's a lot of reasons why people are wondering about Iran. And then Xi warned Putin against using nukes in Ukraine, so according to a report. It says Chinese officials have privately taken credit for preventing nuclear warfare, claiming President Xi Jinping warned Russian President Vladimir Putin against using nuclear weapons earlier this year, according to a Financial Times report. Xi made the comments to Putin during the Chinese leader's visit to Moscow in March. Western and Chinese officials told the Financial Times the Kremlin denied the conversation took place when asked on Wednesday, saying that anything other than the country's official accounts of the leaders' discussion is, quote, fiction. The Financial Times sources claim that China is boasting that it cooled Putin's threats of nuclear warfare. The Chinese are taking credit for sending the message at every level, a senior U.S. official told the Financial Times. So again, they're trying to make China look like the good guy here, the peacemaker, and I just find it. I find it like it's just all for show. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. All right, and then somebody asked, okay, well then where is the kitty litter? You must be at the very beginning of the show. I can actually show you the kitty litter thing. Hey, bud, can you? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I would make up something so stupid and make myself look stupid for no reason, but you can see the blood on it in the hole. Yeah, it was stupid. And again, it's not something I'm proud of. If you missed the beginning of my show, I put a knife straight through my hand. The part that came out the other side, though, was just tiny, like just barely the tip. But what was crazy is that like almost closed immediately, and I didn't realize that it actually had gone all the way through. And luckily, I missed the tendons in my hand, and luckily, I got it really clean, and luckily, it was a very clean knife that hadn't been used for anything. And I don't believe it's that like the black blade kind of stainless steel thing. I don't know if that's any worse than regular metal, but I would think it would be good. But yeah, it was very stupid. And surprisingly, I was one of the reason why I was doing the fireworks is because I was one of the only sober people there. And then I end up, and pretty much everything ended after that. After 4 or 5 moms were surrounding me, trying to help me with my wound, nobody was in the mood to do fireworks anymore. So I kind of ruined the vibe. Sorry about this, guys. There we go. Sorry. But yeah, I don't know why somebody would make up, oh, hey, I did something stupid. And then Ukraine accuses Russia of planting explosives. Speaking of doing stupid things, Ukraine accuses Russia of planting explosives on nuclear plant's roof. So it has begun. This is why I say the fireworks are just beginning. It says that Ukraine claimed that Russian troops occupying the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant and planted bombs on the facility's roof in preparation for an imminent sabotage, as Moscow accused Kiev of plotting a false attack. Now, what's crazy is just a couple of years ago, this was something that would get you booted. Now, every mainstream has accused at least one side or the other of this, right? This was a no-no. You put this in the title, even. If you put this in the title, you'd be taking an involuntary 30-day break on any of the platforms. Now, it's all over the place. I hate how media and all of these platforms, they completely change the things that are acceptable and unacceptable, and it's unbelievable how much they do it. Just a side note, it kind of reminds me of how like the tube now says that it's okay to deny what happened in 2020. They all of a sudden says, oh, we're not going to enforce that anymore. Well, why? And by the way, maybe it's because at some point, government had something to do with telling people that they couldn't do that. And I would think that there would be something constitutional about that, right? Now, if the platform says, hey, I don't want you to say the word, mango, then, and we'll kick you off if you say mango, that's their choice, because they, again, can make their own rules. They can say, hey, we just don't want mango being said. But as far as if somebody actually came in and told them to say, hey, we don't want the word mango out there and we need you to start doing that, then that would be the government directly basically stopping you from saying a certain thing. That would be, I would assume, against our First Amendment, right? So I just think it's weird that they just flopped on that like overnight and said, oh, yeah, you can talk about it. You can talk about it now. It's weird to me. Of course, especially since coming up, there's going to be, another one coming soon. You would think they would double down on that. But no, they have something in plan for the future, and I don't think it's going to be a good thing. Mr. Gates says that it's possibly going to be a hung and, of course, a civil conflict. But they, of course, are saying that they are planning some sort of FF at the power plant. We talked about this. July 5th is the day. Today is the day that they were supposed to be out of Zaporizhia. Dex, we heard that all of the employees, or at least from the Ukrainian side, they said all of the employees needed to be out by the 5th for some reason. So this is the last day they can be there. Is something going to happen on the 6th? What is the deal with this?
Well, we're well past the 5th now in their time zone. But the interesting thing, and this is why it's so important to pay attention to it, is because of the finger pointing on both sides. Like at some point, somebody's going to be right, or unless they're both just absolute lying, but they're both saying that the other side is about to do something. Yet neither side is providing absolute proof. Neither side is even providing a shred of evidence other than their rhetoric and words. So the people that are there are very nervous and terrified. The people that live around it are obviously nervous and terrified. Of course, we had our senators create a Senate resolution, or try to get a Senate resolution passed for that would be going towards NATO to tell them, hey, if any radiation comes towards any NATO country, then that would instantly, and they believe it should instantly invoke Article 5. Now, it's not up to the Senate to choose that. They can just say the words. It's up to NATO to make that choice. But that's a big statement coming from them. And they also said they were doing it in lockstep with our current president. So all of this stuff put together, it's all, the timing is what's so important. The occasional rhetoric from here or there, which we've had over the past year, is one thing. But when you start to see it amp up from everybody, and now we have, the leader of UKR, the president there, saying they have seen them plant, this stuff on the roof. Well, if you've seen it, somebody snapped a picture. So maybe you should be sharing that, or at least putting that out to someone else, so that we can actually say there is credible evidence, as opposed to these words that are going back and forth. But nonetheless, even without the evidence,
wouldn't there be satellite images?
There could be. We don't know. But nonetheless, the fact that there is so much talk about this, especially after the dam, and the dam wasn't an accident. Somebody did it. We all have our opinions of who it was. And of course, the other sides have their opinions that it was the other sides that did it. So, it's not unfathomable to see these massive type events happen that cause a lot of chaos and turmoil. Now, this would be huge, and it's very likely that this could be a legitimate issue, and we keep hearing about it, and they're ramping it up significantly. So we have to pay attention to it.
Well, as far as if they are planting these boom booms on the roof, then what's about to happen? Blumenthal and Senator Graham, we've talked about this. They essentially put a resolution out saying that there's bipartisan support for them to invoke Article 5 right away. Instant invocation if anything happens to the plant, or they launch a missile of any kind. So if they launch a nuclear weapon, if any kind of nuclear weapon goes off, or and they added in very specifically if anything happens to that plant. So I think it's very very timely for this to happen after all of the setup for it. And now they're saying that the boom booms are there. But who knows? Now watch it doesn't happen and they say we almost averted something, or blah, blah, blah. You know, they change everything. They change their stories every couple days. And then Ukraine nuclear tensions rise as U.S. radiation detector is ready. Of course, U.S. radiation detector. I would feel more comfortable if all of the countries surrounding it were in on, the detection process, that people, third parties would come from all over the world to figure this out, just because of all the fantastic Freddies that are going on right now. This and the reason why is we better be sure, because this is going to start World War III. Again, it's nuts how much World War III has been trending on Twitter. It's like everyone feels like something is about to go down, and I sure hope that everyone is wrong. But my gut is that it's already happened. It's starting right now. There's no official declaration for World War III. It starts, and in history, they'll look back and go, oh, it probably started with this. Probably started February 23rd. Probably started before that, right? Out of Bloomberg, it says concerns intensified that a Russian-occupied nuclear reactor in southern Ukraine could be the target of fresh attacks as Kiev and Moscow traded accusations over the threat of radiological incident. What's crazy is if either one of these sides are right, both Vlads are saying the other Vlad is going to destroy this plant and cause a nuclear disaster. Meanwhile, both sides of our aisle are saying no matter what happens, if there's some sort of radiological event, we need to invoke Article 5. And you could say, oh, well, that's just the U.S. Other countries aren't going to jump on board. The U.S. leads the way. The U.S. is the most powerful. The U.S. is in everybody's pocket. This is crazy talk. Now, it says that President Vladimir Zelensky reinforced a warning overnight that Russia may be planning to sabotage the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which Moscow's forces have occupied since the start of the war. Now, no matter if you believe Zelensky or you believe the other side, doesn't matter. If you want to support UKR or support Russia, that's up to you. But both sides are saying that this is about to happen. And the general consensus is if this happens, it's going to go, radiation is going to go into NATO territory, and then all of a sudden we have World War III. It says that we have information from our intelligence that Russian troops have placed objects resembling explosives on the roof of several power units at Zaporizhzhia, Zelensky said in the nightly address to the nation. It says the objects may also be used to simulate an attack, he said. Inspectors from the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency have reported that they have seen no evidence so far of mines or explosives. IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi said on Wednesday that his team had requested access to the rooftops of 2 reactors and other parts of the complex following the accusations of mining. The nuclear plant, the largest in Europe, has been the target of artillery, drone, and rocket attacks, and on and off for more than a year, with the Ukrainian and Russian officials blaming each other for the strikes. UN monitors were installed at Zaporizhzhia in September in order to assess the risks. So what's about to happen here? That's what everybody's wondering. It seems like a big setup for some sort of, again, Fantastic Freddy. Dex, go ahead.
Well, there's a couple of thoughts I have on this in addition to what we've already said. One is who benefits if this plant does have an incident at it that is done by kinetic resources. Well, we know that means NATO will join. Well, who wants NATO to get involved? Well, we know that UKR does, and we know that Russia does not. Russia does not want them involved, at least publicly stated. Let's leave it at that. Now, the flip side is if you say, well, no, Russia really does want them involved. Well, they could do like 20 other things that are a lot simpler, like take down an aircraft, put a few lobs over the line in Poland, something a lot less than taking out this plant to instantly get NATO involved. So if they wanted NATO involved, there's an easy way to do that. This seems like a very complex way and dangerous way, not just for the people in UKR, but it also affects all of Europe, and it affects a portion of Russia. So keep that in mind. It's not like it's just something in one town. It's only going to affect them. The radiation will go to all different areas. So the other part that is interesting, though, is that in this particular article, they're talking about something that the Air Force had announced. So the U.S. Air Force decision to dispatch a Boeing WC-135R Constant Phoenix aircraft to Greece on June 30th, which is when all of this rhetoric started to ramp up, is yet another piece of evidence that we're sort of putting into the mix to say, is this potentially real? Because this is the aircraft that actually does real-time detection of radioactive releases. It was this type of aircraft was used during Chernobyl and other events. So when all of a sudden this thing appears in Greece at the same time that everybody's talking about this, and we just have, in a couple days later, you got Blumenthal and Graham, and you've got Zelensky over and over again for like a week and a half saying this is going to happen. It's pretty suspect that all of these things are aligning, and that's why people keep looking at this, saying there might be something here. We need to really pay attention to it. Of course, the Pentagon says, "Oh no, we send that there all the time. It's a routine deployment." Sure, it is, but it's just coincidence that it shows up at the same time that everybody's talking about this potential radiation from an event at Zaporizhzhia.
Now, I'm probably confusing my plans. If the military folks here could answer this question, wasn't there a similar WC-135R that flew right before Beirut happened, like 8 hours before or something? Or was that a Poseidon P8, P8 Poseidon? I think it was a sub Hunter, and that's why people questioned if it was a sub torpedo or something, because it was on the water when that thing happened. Or at least the thing that went boom was right next to a port. But I feel like there was also a WC-135R. Please correct me. I'm not saying that because I don't actually know. But do you guys know? I can't. My memory does not serve right. And it wasn't something that was mainstream. It was more like the independent crowd, and everybody looked at the flight logs and radar. Lola Cafe, hey, thank you so much for back-to-back supports. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Lola Cafe. And it's so nice to see you. I don't know, I think I've said this before, but every time I see your name, I think of the Lola Cafe in West Seattle. And it's good memories because I used to live in West Seattle and have to drive by it every day. And it's a cute little cafe on the other side of the bridge. Reality Flow, thank you. And Craig Alicious, what is happening in France is not organic. Not organic. And then Music Lovers, sorry about your hand, Marv. Try to get some liquid glue to seal it up tight. I think it's sealed. The problem is when it's so deep like that, I worried about like what went in. Do I need to take antibiotics or something as a precaution? I didn't want to go into it. I can't imagine. I've gone in on a normal day, like on a Tuesday in the afternoon, and the ER since CV has just been an absolute nightmare. Have you guys been to the ER? If you walk in there, you spend like 12 hours. Geez, I even had breathing issues. Usually if you have breathing issues, they get you in first. I went into the ER and they had like 2 lists. And the one list was like very important, like first C. And I thought it said I had an hour left. And it was actually it was my wait time. And then it said that it was like 13-hour wait time. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. After like 6 or 7 hours in the ER, I ended up leaving that time. But it's been like that every single time. It's just nuts. Kenny Crowder, good evening, Adam Dexmont. I couldn't imagine on 4th of July with all the people blowing up their hands, all the stupid people, the drunk people. I couldn't imagine what that would be like. Good evening, Adam Dex Mods and Fugel family. Hope you had a wonderful 4th. Be safe your way. And then CG36, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate that. And Zenwen AZ, thank you so much. And I appreciate you stopping by. Music Lovers, again, thank you. MRC, thank you. Daniel Streitbeck, thank you for subscribing. All right. And then exiled Wagner boss returns to Russia and gets his weapons back. Really? That was, in my opinion, that was an entire show. We'll talk about that here in a second. Make sure to go over and check out EMP Shield. You can protect your cars, your trucks, your vehicles, and keep them running after either an EMP strike or a solar event like a Carrington level event. If we do have a Carrington event, then you can actually protect your vehicles, your house, your generators, your boats, pretty much any device with an EMP shield to keep it running after this happens. It can withstand multiple EMP strikes. In fact, they stopped testing after about 42 because EMPs happen in phases and in pulses, in stages, and they happen time and time again. So you definitely want to go check these out. They make them for pretty much everything, including your home. Again, go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. You will not only get the $50 off from our discount per device, but they're also running all sorts of different holiday events. There was an extra 10% off, which Dex, do we know if they still have the extra 10% off? I know they did that for Memorial, right?
Yes, and they flipped it to a July 4th sale, which I'm guessing will probably be on for a couple days.
Okay. So you'll get an extra 10% off, which basically ends up being tax in a lot of states. So go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. It's very easy to put in, especially with the car versions. If you want your car to run and be one of the only ones that has a running car, then again, red to red, black to black, and green to ground. So you just put that to the red on your battery, black on the black on your battery, and then the green to a part of your frame, and it will ground the signal to your frame in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it can fry your car and all of the devices in. If you don't have electricity in a lot of the, especially in a lot of the newer cars, you can't do anything. Even your gas is digital. It again, pretty much useless if it gets struck. And then exiled Wagner boss returns to Russia and gets his weapons back. What is the deal with this? This is obvious. And the painting of the picture that we've gotten is so obvious that it's meant to be questioned. What I'm wondering is they know that we are all supposed to question this and go, this is weird. So why are they doing that? They're playing 4D chess, and they know what our reactions will be. They know what the reactions to the reactions will be. This guy who, according to mainstream, planned a mutiny and was trying to take over and take out other people in the Russian government, including Shogu, is now back, and they're just like, we forgive you. No worries. You guys are jerks. We always knew you were jerks, so just go keep being jerks, but for us. Dex, nothing sits right about this story.
No, it doesn't. This is just the oddest thing. So, aside from, of the fact that they let him off, they dropped the charges. They said there were no charges, but during the time they had raided his home, they raided his, camp. They, and then eventually, I guess he may have, I don't know if he was detained, but he obviously had to then travel to Belarus. So maybe there was some other interaction there that wasn't really known. But in the process of that, there was some personal weapons of his that were sort of confiscated. And they basically, people were saying he was seen at the FSB office in St. Petersburg. And they said that the authorities handed over to Sega rifles, a Manliker, and get this, one of the ones they gave back was a Glock that was gifted to him by Sergei Shogu, who is the person he was going after. So he got that back. And not only that, he got back 10 billion rubles, which is more than $100 million that they say law enforcement had found during the raid of one of his vehicles. So, yeah. What? You just try to overthrow the government, but here, let's give you all your goodies back. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
The only way that would make sense is if they were in on it, that it was a plan, that it was part of the Ganda that they were doing in the first place. It does not make sense. All right, and let's see here. Let's go to the chat. I would love to see what you guys are saying about this, and let's see what you guys are saying about the Wagner boss. I would love to hear some theories on why you think that they just gave him everything back. $100 million. Like, this is just, it's weird. CIA got busted, says Malia Mom. Doesn't look like him, says Truth Iris. Let's see. Let's go back up to it. I don't know. I think it. he's definitely a weird, or not weird, I'm sorry. He's definitely a unique looking guy. He's not weird because he actually looks like a lot of people. It's kind of like I could see him playing chess in the park, not being a billionaire, boss. Let's see here. Wagner is a soap opera. All looks staged to move people. Sarah Barra says. Rebecca Snavely says, I think Putin is strategizing. I actually agree with that. I think something is going on here. There's no way that he would. There's no way. Or it might be the way that everything is framed. We don't know what the actual stories are here. Maybe they're completely different than what we're being told. It was just odd. And then for all of the Russian people, do they support Wagner? I think most of them probably support him because they're heroes and they're fighting for Russia, not against. And then Putin is beefing up his security services because he's fearful there could be another armed rebellion. Dex, so I wonder why. Maybe because you just brought back the guy that supposedly did an armed rebellion?
Yeah, I mean the flip side to this whole story is that maybe he's literally scared of them. I doubt it. But that's what they want us to think, is that he's weak, he's scared. He dodged the proverbial bullet, so to speak, in this last round with Prigozhin, and now he's gonna beef up security because he's afraid it might happen again. But yeah, let me tell the leader of that last attempt, come back, get your goods. We got it. All your money and your bang bangs, come get them. Yeah. This has got Ganda-ish written all over it on one hand, but on the other hand, man, if one strategy is to confuse everybody and just make everybody run around and create all sorts of rabbit holes, from 6 billion from here, from CIA there, 100 million found in a car, give him this back. He almost marched up the street. He took down very expensive military aircraft. He was able to take it down from the side of the interstate as he's marching up. If we're supposed to just take all of that and just confuse the world, maybe that's the what they're trying to do, and they've done a really good job, because these rabbit holes are splintering in all different directions, and I don't think we really have a clue what's going on here, other than what we originally saw and were told is very likely not the case.
Yeah, somebody commented, says, for one of the top channels in the community, if you think this is the truth, then this is not the truth, or whatever. We're not saying any of this is the truth. In fact, we doubt every single story that comes through here, and then we get a few thousand people to weigh in and tell us what they think. So, and majority of the time, we let people know what the majority of us are actually thinking. So I don't see how we have ever said that any of this is true. Most of our show is questioning and asking questions about the mainstream side of things. It's all a play. It's all. If we question if it could be, here's the thing. I don't think there's not a single YouTube channel that knows the truth. What is truth? That's the funny thing. What is the truth? There is no truth. There is picking out the lies, spotting the obvious BS, and then the rest is all a guessing game. It's all a guessing game, and the more that you see the patterns, you'll see more of this pattern come out, where we can find out what's happening next. Because a lot of it is like a bad B movie. Dex, go ahead.
We announce it at the beginning of every show. The internet is full of fake news. Please take everything with a grain of salt. And that's why we say it. We mean everything.
Yeah. It doesn't, if I see somebody that has everything down, and even if, I don't care what kind of degrees they have, if they say they know exactly what is happening. And here's the thing, people will follow people like that. In fact, they'll follow people more so than they would any channel like mine, because we're questioning stuff. If somebody with a confident tone says it, then people just believe it. They're like, he's confident. That's the truth. And that person is so confident, and then that person gets confident in what they're hearing, because they go, Oh, no. And they hear from somebody, if they like that person compared to if they don't, I can tell you right now, psychologically, if somebody likes a host and they are confident, they say something and they go, that sounds reasonable, even the slightest bit reasonable, they will go, I believe that. If they don't, you could have two people say the exact same thing. And if you have somebody they don't like, they're not going to want to support them. They're going to say, oh, you stupid, affiliates and ads. And they won't believe what they're saying or what they're doing. They'll go over to a channel that does, it could be a carbon copy with somebody they like, and they'll go, oh, here's some support. Oh, rock on against the man. They'll support them, they'll share them, and they'll say that they believe them, right? It's what I've learned. It's crazy that you can have two of the exact same things, and if somebody likes that person or dislikes that person, people are the biggest hypocrites in the world. They'll say that, but then go over to somebody else saying the exact same thing and go, yeah, oh yeah, right on. Fighting the system. I don't get right now, like with the internet, this is not competition. I don't think any of the other YouTube channels are competition. There's 2 billion people on the planes of things. And this is a voluntary thing. You don't have to watch shows like mine. You have so many other shows to watch. If you don't like the views or the way that we talk, don't watch us. It's that easy. I don't watch channels I don't like. It's that simple. But I think it's deeper than that. When somebody doesn't like you, they don't want you to talk at all. They want you to shut up. And then Russia is painting dark stripes on its warships to make them look smaller and confuse Ukrainian drones. So I don't know exactly that this is, I believe it says the Russian warship, the Admiral Essen, in the Black Sea before the apparent paint job. The photo is still taken from video released by Russian Defense Ministry press service on January 26. So they say that a website dedicated to sharing news about Russia's Black Sea fleet also shared an image of the Ivan Gubelets, a Soviet-era minesweeper, which appeared to have been painted with thick, dark bands at either end. It said that the image, which Insider was unable to independently verify, was taken around a month earlier. It said Siddharth Kushal, a fellow researcher in sea power at London's Royal United Services Institute, told insiders that the reported attempt at camouflage would be entirely consistent with the sort of things a state would do to mitigate an uncrewed surface vessel threat. It says, and he described how the operator of an uncrewed surface vessel or maritime could be deceived by it. UKR's USVs are guided through video feed by a remote human operator. They travel at high speeds, giving the operator only a short time to pick out a target. It would appear that in this case, the camouflage is primarily geared towards ensuring that a very long distances, a low-quality electro-optical sensor might not distinguish the vessel from background clutter. The ship might also appear smaller thanks to the dark paint against the water. Something about this doesn't sit right either. I don't know, but I even thought about how they might be painting their whole fleet so that if somebody else does a Russian paint job on a ship, that who knows, maybe they're doing it so if there's a random Russin ship attacking somebody in the Strait of Hormuz or the in the Taiwan Strait or anywhere else, that they say, no, that one doesn't have the black paint on it. We just put on our entire fleet. So that couldn't have been us, and you just got caught doing a Fantastic Freddy. Because it heavily seems like they're trying to start a war. But as far as this goes, if you are in the military and you know about drones and, of course, uncrewed vessels, then let me know. Does this actually make sense? It does sound logical. It does sound reasonable. But I would think that it's pretty hard to hide a big, huge destroyer or something like it. Dex, when you saw this, what did you think?
Interesting tactic. And I know we had talked about this whole idea of them painting and changing ships. I just, that's pretty, it's a lot to undertake, I would think, but maybe not. Maybe they can disguise a ship and then, make it look like something else and then quickly turn it back later when they need it to not look like that.
Darren Schrader says they should paint waves on the ship, make it look like the ocean. There have been some pretty cool paint jobs on some of the military stuff. What's even cooler is they're coming out with that technology that can take 360. It will take video of everything around it, and then it somehow projects that image on a thin layer that makes it look like the background. I mean, it's straight up like turning invisible, right? If it's in front of a bush that's like this and the tank is like this, it will actually project a picture of the bushes. Now, I don't think any of those are operational, but they have these kind of concept, tanks or fake tank. I think they're fake tanks, but they're in this shape and size, and they've tried doing this. They've tried doing this for years, the invisibility cloak type of thing. But some people have actually said that they believe they already have it, especially for planes, and that's why we see so many odd objects in the sky. What do you think? Do you think they already have an invisible cloak, 20, 30, 50 years ahead of our technology, and they just don't tell us about it because, well, they don't have to. It's invisible. And then Ukraine may be offered fast-track NATO membership in Vilnius, Lithuanian president says. So I think it's crazy that we're talking about NATO accepting Ukraine in during a conflict. They're heavily pushing for it. It causes panic. People are like, well, if that happens, then we're instantly involved in World War III. In fact, now the debates are, once they are accepted into NATO, will the conflict just get frozen? Dex, have you noticed that, how they're now kind of putting it in our heads like, oh, they're basically just, they're going to get into NATO, and if it happens, they're more talking about what happens when they are accepted into NATO.
Right. And maybe they're thinking that Putin is in a weak position, or that this, counteroffensive is working, or all these other things. But, I don't know. I just can't see this happening, in my opinion, just because of the fact that if they were to fast track them like we saw them do with Finland, which happened relatively quickly, then you would instantly be into a global conflict, or at least a very large conflict in Europe, that would probably spread to a lot of other areas. But I get the idea that they're throwing this out there to say that, well, if we do it, they'll just stop. But I don't know. I don't know if that would really happen, because I don't know. It's a very tricky situation. But at the same time, I just, they've talked about it, and most of the other countries have said, yeah, we'd love to have them in, but not while they're in a conflict. I can't imagine that just because, the Lithuanian president is saying, well, it's possible, because sure, anything's possible, that really means it's going to happen. They may say, yeah, we'd like to fast track you, but we'd like to fast track you as soon as you're done. Not while you're in the middle of it. And I can't imagine that, all the other countries, especially Turkey, who's the big holdout there all the time, is going to even approve them. They haven't even approved Sweden.
Yeah, I would think they would get in before Ukraine, right? Someone said that this looks like Mini-Me looks like Mini-Me all grown up. I do see the resemblance. That's kind of funny. And then Philippines accuses China of more harassment near disputed reef. Lots of chatter between the Philippines. A lot of stuff about Philippines has been coming out. Of course, one of China's neighbors. And it says that the Philippines on Wednesday accused China's Coast Guard of harassment, obstruction, and dangerous maneuvers against its vessels after another incident near the strategic feature of the South China Sea that has become a flashpoint between them. Philippine Coast Guard boats were assisting a naval operation on June 30th when they were, quote, constantly followed, harassed, and obstructed by the significantly larger Chinese Coast Guard vessels. Philippine Coast Guard spokesman Jay Tarella said in a tweet. It took place near the Second Thomas Shoal, a submerged reef over which the Philippines stake a claim to sovereignty via a handful of troops who live aboard a rusty World War II-era American ship that was intentionally grounded in 1999. China's embassy in Manila did not immediately respond to requests for comment, and the issue was not mentioned at a regular briefing on Wednesday by the foreign minister in Beijing. Torella said the vessels had to reduce speed to prevent a collision. It sounds like there's a bunch of like teenage boys that are just idiots, not only flying planes, but in these boats. There's always a near collision. Like, if you were really to look at this, like, these are professional navies, all of them, right? Even in some of the smaller countries like the Philippines, it's like they do these stupid things like pull in front of them. They're basically brake checking them, right? It just seems pretty immature. But what is the point of this? Why does this keep happening, or why do they cover it like they do? Because there's plenty of stuff they don't. There's plenty of events happening that mainstream doesn't cover. Why do they always cover these things, right? That's my question. And then, real quick, make sure if you don't have extra food, marfooglenews.com/prep. You can get 25-year shelf life food that is, again, freeze dried and ready to last over 2 decades. You get a huge discount right now, which is $80 off per month. If you get a month supply, that's $80 off, which is better than the $200 off on the 3-month that they were doing. Now it's $80 per month. So if you get 3 months, you're actually going to get $240 off right now. So I'd highly recommend, if you are trying to get a 3, 6 to 9 month supply, which is what is recommended, then I'd highly recommend going through this. It's one of the most affordable ways to get yourself freeze-dried food that will last this long. It is easily stored, and it takes up very little space for how much food you get because it is freeze-dried. They take all the water out, you cook it with water and add it back in, and then you have yourself a meal. You can survive in any kind of situation as long as you have food and water. So these are the 2 things that you should have on hand. Again, marfooglenews.com/prep. They also have all sorts of other stuff. Highly recommend the other half of that, which is water. You can get an Alexa Pure Pro, which can purify 99.9% of all the crap out of the water, including lead, fluoride, chlorine, bacteria, and pharmaceuticals. If you, know what's going on there, this is a great thing to get. Go to the top tab and go check out all of the other stuff they have. The Alexa Pure Pro is gravity fed, and it works very fast for a whole lot of water, which will matter if all of the water is shut off. marfooglenews.com/prep. Any of these things, the food, the water, whatever it is, doesn't have to be the end of the world. It could be a regional disaster. It will come in handy someday. I can almost guarantee it. All right. And then Philippines, again, crazy thing there. Now, giant sunspot grew 10 times wider than Earth in just 48 hours and then spat an X-class flare right at us. So also, we have a video on our website. If you missed the very beginning of the show, over on marfooglenews.com, there is at the very bottom, there is a great video done by Wages World, which actually has a video talking about the recent solar eruption and the July 4th event that just happened. But again, they had an enormous, rapidly growing sunspot on the sun's surface has unleashed a mighty X-class flare, the most powerful type of solar flare the sun is capable of producing. The solar storm slammed into our planet, triggering brief radio blackouts in parts of the U.S. and elsewhere, but it could have been a lot worse, experts warned. The enormous dark patch named AR3354 emerged on the solar surface on June 27th, and within 48 hours had grown to cover about 1.3 billion square miles of the sun, or about 10 times wider than Earth. It said that space weather scientists were alarmed by the colossal sunspot rapid emergence and feared that it could spit out a barrage of potentially harmful solar storms, according to spaceweather.com. After growing to its full size, the sunspot produced a sizable M-class flare and on June 29th, but then remained calm until July 2nd, when it belched out an X-class flare aimed directly at our planet. Solar flare classes include A, B, C, M, and then the top, which is X, with each class being at least 10 times more powerful than the previous ones. Radiation from the gargantuan X-class flare barreled into Earth's magnetic field and ionized the gases in the upper part of the atmosphere, turning the molecules into dense plasma. As a result, the radio signals were scattered, causing radio blackouts in the western U.S. and parts of the eastern Pacific Ocean, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The disruption lasted for around 30 minutes, but things could have gotten much worse. Researchers initially suspected that the flare could have launched a coronal mass ejection, a cloud of fast-moving magnetized plasma, and if a CME from a flare this size hit Earth, it would have likely caused major disruption to Earth's magnetic fields, known as a geomagnetic storm. This could have resulted in even a larger radio blackout affecting up to half of the planet, as well as potentially damaging satellites orbiting Earth and impacting power infrastructure on the planet's surface. But luckily, no CME was launched. We got super, super lucky. And this is why people have talked about it. And this just happens to happen around. They're saying that the peak of the solar maximum and the peak of this solar cycle right now, which is also predicted by the 25 cycles that we've monitored before, that this one is possibly going to be a cycle within cycles that is essentially capable of something extremely scary. So many people have put it around 2024 to 2025 is when the peak is going to happen. They say it's actually happening faster. So this is why anyone who follows all of the solar weather is also prepping. Because if something does happen, if we have a Carrington level event, as I talked about earlier, this could knock out our entire grid. And if that happens, it's going to take a very long time to get back up and running. And if you know humans, when everything goes to crap, it's only going to take a few days for the entire world to be a mess. So this is something that you should at least have a basic knowledge of and follow it at least when the big events happen. So again, it's a good thing if you are subscribed to us or to Wages World, you'll have that coverage. Dex, this was a very lucky thing that happened here.
Well, yeah, and that sunspot growing to such a large size and being pointed directly at us is kind of a scary time. Wages videos got the most up-to-date information. I think it was just released yesterday, so it's got it was talking about the one that happened on the 4th, and that there is a CM. So by the way, just as a reminder, when an X class happens or when the first instance happens, there's always the possibility, and typically does follow up with the CME, which comes later. It takes time. So you get sort of a warning with the plasma, and then you get the CME portion that comes a few days later. And both have different effects on the planet and what they can do. Of course, the CME being one of the most dangerous as far as we think about when we think about electric grids, et cetera. The former being more towards the radio blackouts and things like that happen. So, and I'm probably speaking completely out of my lane because I'm nowhere near the expert Wages, and some of these other folks are on it. So if you want more, like I said, go to our website. We've got his video on there. You definitely should take a look at it. It'll give you all the goodies of what's coming and what you need to be prepared for.
And if you want to access that video, again, it's over on our website, marfooglenews.com. In our bibliography, there is this break here. And just to give you a small taste. And he actually shows all of the different videos happening here. And it actually has all of the stereo A, the stereo B, all of the different views of when this happened. It was really, really massive. In fact, right there, you can see it. Look at that. We, as of now, are really lucky. Boom, right there. And he outlines it in red. So make sure to go show your support for Wages World and go over and check out his video. I don't know if you did this, but I don't think this is on previous ones. You actually showed where the cameras are with that little graph here. I think that's actually really cool. So thank you. All right. And then let's see here. And then Bill Ackman explains why he embraced RFK Jr.'s skepticism on the VZs. That's how I'm going to say it from now on. If I'm talking about the V. Bill Ackman said in 2021, delaying the COVID older Americans seems like genocide. Today, the influential hedge fund chief and investor is amplifying the debunked, according to this, views of the Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Ackman is not denying his change. In fact, he said Kennedy is asking important questions about the V's, raising issues he is interested in learning more about. Now, if you don't know, RFK is actually on the Democrat side of the aisle and has put out a book. And that book is excellent in pointing out all of the crazy stuff with the V's and with the whole health system. It definitely changed a lot of people's minds on it. I know folks that literally did not get it because of that book. So I think, in general, in my opinion, that's a good thing. Several of Ackman's recent tweets about the CMs have stunned and confounded many of his colleagues on Wall Street, according to several people who have known and been allied with him for years. And it's led both his allies and foes to ask the same questions. Why is he doing this? Ackman answered that question in an interview with CNBC. Says, I listened to RFK on several podcasts and a town hall and thought he raised important issues about the V and other issues that were worth learning about, said Ackman, the CEO of Pershing Square Capital. I don't feel like we've fully answered questions about the safety of all of the Vs, particularly more recently approved Vs, and our approach to determining their safety and efficacy. Although the effectiveness of the has declined over time as the virus has evolved into new variants. Public health officials say that the are a critical tool in preventing hospitalizations and perishing from the V, particularly among the elderly people with pre-existing medical conditions. I have personal opinions on this, but again, I think that a lot of people do. A lot of people that know somebody who, again, is in their personal circle. I know more people that know people in their personal circle that got this, more so than had problems from the actual thing they were getting it for. And in one case, and I will point out that this person immediately afterwards essentially started slurring their words, has had multiple issues, multiple surgeries now, got a pacemaker put in, all sorts of other things. And of course, it has nothing to do with that, right? Several folks that I know have had issues. One thing that is generally agreeable is that there should be more information, and that we should get more information about everything. There should be more transparency when it comes to these things, and there should be some sort of regulation and some sort of accountability for if things go wrong with these, but there's not. In the case of all of the V, there isn't. If something bad happens, they don't have anybody to sue. And as over time has gone on, there's been more and more information that came out that is confirmed that was said in the very beginning. It's not like this information was not out in the very beginning while it was all going on. It was all being said, but it was being called bad information, right? But again, now that it's confirmed, do they go back and say sorry to the people that they kicked off of all of the social medias? No. In fact, they have changed things. Now you can all of a sudden talk about these things when it's not important and when it's not all over the place and people are dancing in costumes of needles and things on late night television. Now you can talk about it. I think it's absolutely a huge farce. I think that the biggest thing here is that there were more billionaires made in a few months, all in the same industry, than ever has happened before. Not to mention we printed more money in a few months than we ever have in history. More money was printed in just a few months' time because of the stimulus and all of that than has ever been printed in all of history. And people didn't think that things were about to fall apart. I don't know what they're thinking. Dex, I think we'll probably see a lot more people. I don't know who they're trying to line up for the big show, like the big the two people they put at the front for the next round. But it seems like, it's either going to be DeSantis and T-Man against, do you think RFK could make it to the main spot? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, they're speculating that even Newsom may, take JB's position, but I doubt it. It's way too early to call anything because all this stuff can get major curveballs. But look, Bill Ackman, this it's not a name that we talk about. He's not somebody that's in our our niche and the conversations we've had. But it's probably the first time we've ever mentioned his name on our show. But he's an important person, and the reason why is because he's a billionaire hedge fund manager, CEO of a large capital company and is well known in the Wall Street side. And that's why a lot of those Wall Streeters like, hey, wait a minute, why is he saying this? Some of them are saying, why is he saying this? Because they don't like it. And some of them are probably saying, why is he saying this? Maybe I should pay more attention. That's my speculation, by the way. But this guy's worth like 3.6 billion. This is somebody that does have a lot of influence in his sphere, which is over in the Wall Street area, over in the money world. So to see somebody speaking out like this, that's why it's so attention getting. And because I think that it's not, RFK's message and stuff that's out there. This is not stuff that's new to many of us. Unless you're new to the community, then welcome. But for those of us that have been around the block here, this is not new news, but the person is the new news, that this yet another person is coming forward of potential stature and position to sort of give some sort of at least validation, if you want to call it that, towards what the questions that RFK is asking.
And remember, in 2020, he said the U.S. should launch mass Vs of the elderly. That's something you got to kind of just get right with your maker about. But yeah. And if you don't know, this is a very controversial subject, but it shouldn't be. If you actually are open-minded, you will most likely be taking a stance alongside of Ackman and RFK. But RFK even did a commercial. He said they had like $4 million for their campaign. $4 million. He said that, their goal was like 100 million or something. And he did this video that was just kind of a heart-to-heart video. It says, hey, we're making it work with very little money, but we need money. He's basically saying that. One thing about the campaign trail is if you don't have money, you don't go far. But he said that he's making up for it by going on social media, Joe Rogan, and all of these different places, right? Well, he's welcome on our show, but again, I think that it's pretty crazy. A lot of the old videos of him, everybody that interviewed him got knocked off, especially when he was talking about the stuff before. All right, and then Danish Girl says, praying for your quick and total healing of your hand. Adam, we need you on this channel to keep informing us of the things going on and are not aware of. Much love to you. Danish Girl, thank you so much. And I appreciate your support, and thank you, and thank you. Again, thank you for your support this year. I appreciate it. And then Tennessee Mountain Girl, thank you so much as well. Tennessee, nice to see you again tonight. And then Bible Talk 777, always good to see you, Bible Talk. The whole C and V was a culling. I think the culling hasn't even gotten here yet. The Deagle report results there, but that's just my opinion. All right, and then Dex, let's go over the web only. We've got lots of crazy stuff here.
We certainly do. Head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link down below in the description. It'll take you to the web page that has all the show notes that we just went over. So if you're looking for any of the information we were talking about, where it came from, you'll find the links to it. Then you're going to find this yellow bar and then wages video. That'll be there. The yellow bar says overflow. This is where the rest of the story hits, and wages video is right there on the top. Then we've got a lot of other information that we've gathered for you today. So the State Department cancels a Facebook meeting after the judge's quote unquote censorship ruling. So if you didn't hear about that, there was one of the judges had said, hey, the government can't be involved in these social media meetings around the November event that happens every 4 years or every 2 years, but you know what I'm talking about. So now all of a sudden they're canceling those meetings, which is going to be interesting to see. Doesn't mean that the social media networks are not going to play a role, which we know they tend to be cited, extremely cited in some cases, but at least they won't have these ongoing, in some cases, weekly meetings with the government about who they should be looking at and not looking at from a potential threat standpoint. So that's kind of a good thing. Apparently Zuck's new Threads just launched today, I think at 7:00 Eastern time or sometime tonight. So Threads is out there if you're interested. I'm not really that crazy about it myself because I'm not a big fan of Zuck, but That's up to you. It looks like it's based off of Instagram when I looked at it. If you have an Instagram account, then you can have a Threads account. It's part of the Instagram network. So Threads is supposed to be the new Twitter killer that's out there. Lots of shark attacks going on in New York. For those of you up there, they're saying like 50 of them were spotted on one beach. They've now had multiple reports of that going on. We may have a UPS labor issue coming up, potential strike. So they're talking about this. That would be a huge effect to commerce and trade, as they do transport quite a bit of everything that we buy online, as well as other stuff. There was an interesting thing going on with the with the two former presidents about almost like doxing, and then somebody showing up. So if you want to see that, it's there. We do have continued coverage of a little bit of the political stuff, what's going on with T-Man, what's going on with some other stuff in those more controversial topics that are there. Excuse me. And then here's an interesting survey: millennials being quote unquote the biggest liars of all generations, according to a survey. So if you're interested in knowing more, that's there. We do have continued coverage in what's going on in UKR and with Russia. So a little bit of updates on that, as well as from China's point of view. I know we've talked about this a lot. There's a very interesting article about the youth unemployment, that it's getting so dire. It's inspired college grads to post pictures of themselves sprawled on the ground in zombie-style poses. Yeah, they're getting creative, or maybe they're getting their version of millennials. But no, I really think that they have a huge unemployment issue there for their younger folks. So, and by the way, Bezos is paying like Kenny G $600,000 a month. If you want to know why, it's because he's renting his place. Check it out. All of that and so much more. I didn't even give you all of it. It's right there on our website. Go to marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show. You'll land on this page, or just open up the show notes link in the description. It'll take you right here.
Why is it $600,000 a month? Can you guys imagine? And when we hear like it's crazy that we hear like that one Bill Ackman's worth $3.6 billion. I just think like in one lottery winning, they had the mega billions, or whatever it was called, for $2 billion, right? To the money, it's just kind of like we showed Mini-Me earlier. Remember when Dr. Evil was like, we want $1 million, or more so like $1 million, and they're like, nah, that's really not much. That's not a lot of money at all. And he's like, okay, $1 billion. Now $1 billion isn't even that much, right? I mean, to any of us it is, but to Bezos, $150 billion. He could easily spend $2 billion and make himself a skyscraper, and he would still be fine. To pay $600,000 a month in rent is just absurd. Even if it is a Kenny G. Gosh, how rich is Kenny G if he's getting paid $600,000 a month in rent? That's $1 million every 2 months. 1.2 million every 2 months. What is that per year? I mean, geez, that's incredible. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, and not only that, for $600,000 a month in rent, you think the massive mansion on the pretty beach in Malibu would come furnished? It doesn't. Kenny G threw all his stuff in storage, so the Bezos family is furnishing the entire house while they're renting it for $600,000 a month.
Why is it so much? I get that it's a mansion or whatever, but you would think that, I don't know. You'd think you would just say, hey, what can I do to buy it? And it's Kenny G. It's not like, he can tell all his guests. I guess he can. He can go, I'm staying in Kenny G's house. And he can't even point to like a thing on the wall, go like, that's his golden flute or something, right? Because he took all of his stuff with him. Oh, look at the crystal flute that, what's-her-face played. Who's that? The woman that Lizzo played or something, right? All right. Well, thank you guys, and love you. Everybody, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for the beautiful, beautiful comments there. Thank you so much, and thank your mods. Drop an M in the chat right now for your wonderful mods, and also go support them over at marfooglenews.com/friends. Thank you, Aaliyah. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone that popped in tonight. Thank you over on D Live. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Special thank you to Yobi, One Aunt B, Mary XX, Kelly 2334, Chance. Thank you for modding over there. Island by the Sea, Jammer. Thank you. Scooby Doo Do Right, Kimbria. Of course, we have Kimmy G Wiz. Thank you so much for following. You guys have a wonderful night. Be safe. Be prepared. And Marf out. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
Strait of Hormuz, in the Strait of Hormuz, there will be fantastic Freddy's. In the Strait of Hormuz, in the Strait of Hormuz, there will be fantastic Freddy's. Wait, what I'm biting on, I say I'm biting on. A Danish girl. All in the world, I ain't seen no back, no way. I say where everybody go, and it's a new day. Kenny G is no Kenny Rogers either. I with the Baron Saturday, one on B and the KT Queens alive. Benny Simons and Kenny G are Hammond and a Mr. Hammond, Jurassic Park, the Hunters died and the Mr. Park, Dennis and everyone eating venison. I say island by the sea and still more Bam are and where do we go? A Susan Big and still more. I say crying crisis, everybody crying, island by the sea, and I Alice, I wish, Iris, truth, Iris. I said Dennis on the Carter, Emre no oh now, Wagner on the recorder, bring it on the now, Jordan the Brock, 25 man, bring it on the one and a 1-1 bam. Hey, with the Billy Jacks, why you the America, everybody knows it. Getting ya all out the love in the world. I sit on no flap with a la 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 la. I was going to sleep but I can't wah wah. Hey, about time with the comet moon. See hard thinking a open moon. Hey, I with a jammer and a hand. Bring it on the back now. Oh, now then. Everybody gonna wake up soon. Everybody gonna go you. I know that we flow. Bring it on back now. Everyone go back home now. We know. Lisa R. Like Scooby Doo, where are you?